Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Extra Time Podcast, episode 71, Aussies Around the Grounds edition. I'm here with Lorenzo. Lorenzo, how you doing?
I'm all right. I'm looking forward to talking not AFL. We just recorded the footy chat, and now we're going around the grounds. A little bit happening. Most of this rundown, just for the listening audience, forewarning, I wrote most of this about a week ago, thinking we'd do it last week. We're doing it this week, so immediately we're going to get into stuff that's perhaps a little bit older. That was sort of real big news stories about a week ago, but we haven't got around to them, so we'll follow up on stuff we did the last time we were doing this, and uh, um, talk a bunch of other sports as well in our, as per usual, in our Around the Grounds episode. I do think this is a good thing for this particular podcast, probably more so than Footy Chat. I can imagine, given Boxy's busy schedule, I'd like to see him get in here at some point, particularly as this is going to be a very interesting Formula One season, and if there's heaps going on in basketball, as there usually is, that he would love to talk about. So I reckon Aussie Around the Grounds would be a good one for this sort of virtual setting.
Well, I know that there's obviously the connection issues. We're going to soldier on through with it, and Boxy, you are free to join us. I mean, we are recording at 9:30 at night. Where are you, mate?
Yes.
You don't have you're probably watching United lose, and we'll discuss that a little bit
Yes.
later on.
Just lost.
But right now, I think let's just get right into it. And the first up is this is why we play. No, this is why
Yes.
we play.
Yeah, there we go.
This went a little bit earlier. I don't know what the slides are. I haven't had a look at them, so I'm sorry in advance if I do
Yeah.
stuff the order up.
So
But it is.
yes. No, that's my fault. I should have flipped them the other way around. I forgot that I put them in that particular order. I forgot about that. But yeah, so this is a two-parter because I am updating. If you remember, when Boxy was here, he wanted to do a bit more on the buy, trade, sell element of Aussies around the grounds, and I said buy stock in this man. This is Neil Robertson, Australia's number one snooker player and a former world champion. Well, this was a week ago now, but he was victorious at the World Grand Prix tournament in Hong Kong. 10-0 victory in the final, a whitewash over Stuart Bingham, who he also just defeated, it was yesterday, a couple of days ago, at the Players' Championship event 6-4. Robertson won the world title in 2010, has been sort of up and down in form over the last 15 years, but he's had a really strong 24-25 season, and he is going to be right sort of in the contention for the World Championship, which will begin in about a month at the iconic Crucible Theatre in Sheffield. He had a very good week out in Hong Kong, contesting his 38th ranking final as part of the World Snooker Tour. He's up to world number 11 in the on the world rankings. He was down at 19, so he's had a good couple of months, won a few tournaments this particular year, really bounced back from being a little bit away from deep runs in tournaments, and he has composed himself, and he's looking like he's going to be one going into the World Championships with a bit of form this year on the snooker side of things. So I'm very interested to see how he goes. Won a first round at the Players' Championship, so he's through to the quarterfinals. He's got Mark Selby next, the number six. Well, at least the number six seed for this Players' Championship. It's done slightly differently. It's got a slightly different seeding from other ones. The reigning world champion, the sort of the way it's seeded is a little bit different. But the defending champion is one, the reigning world champion is two, and then the rest is on world rankings of those that qualify. So very interested to see how he goes. Got a month to go to the world championship, and my stock is looking good. Is looking good at the moment, Woodsy, on Neil Robinson.
Very nice. So this is why we play. And obviously, you saw the weekly the weekly wonder. Sorry about this. I'm having to move back because it's Gwot, as his name is.
Yes.
So
What gap? It doesn't really matter. What matters is he's incredibly fast. He broke the 20-second barrier. Yes, there was a little bit of wind. No, that doesn't really matter because he is literally in Usain Bolt territory at the moment for his particular age. And as Robert Craddock mentioned, they were talking about this on Joe Waitley's program at the end of the last week, I think it was, or whenever. Oh no, was it? No, it was Monday. It was literally a couple of days ago. when they were talking about this, Craddock was right when he was saying, yes, the 2032 Olympics is going to be a very exciting moment, but to be honest, his peak is probably going to be 36. So we've got at least another decade, maybe a little bit more than a decade of seeing this kid and what he can produce.
I was
And
going to
he
say the
is going
next
to be.
three Olympics is going to be amazing because, like, you talk about 2032, but 2028, he like you
Yeah,
can't
he's
write
already
him
there.
off. Like this is
Yeah,
going to be him start. Like even if he doesn't win it, he'll be announcing himself on the world stage
yeah,
in the elite category, not just the juniors.
yeah. The times he's running, it's not quite meddling, but it's like the fourth, fifth. It's sort of around there. So he's already not far off meddling
3 years,
in the
3 years,
100,
mate.
200
3 years,
on his
mate.
best
That's
form.
all I'm
And in
saying
three
is
years,
2028. You've got to actually consider that. And it was Boxy or Dav actually highlighted that it's like it's amazing to think Australia could actually have
yeah,
that opportunity
yeah.
to
We've never been the
have a
biggest.
gold medal in 100 or 200, which honestly, it's Kathy Freeman levels
Yes,
of 2032. So as I was saying, it's Kathy Freeman-esque. If he can get into the final of either the 100 or 200 meters, watch out.
yeah.
Like this is, I reckon,
Oh,
the
yeah.
biggest moment since Kathy Freeman, Olympic
Yeah, certainly.
Olympic wise at least on the world stage.
That's what it is. Yeah. Oh yeah, it would be just an absolutely massive event. We were having some technical difficulties, so I was just looking through. I don't think we haven't had a man win gold in the 100 or 200. We had Majora Jackson and Bethy Cuthbert in 1952 and 1956 in the women's win 100 meters gold. Cuthbert won in Melbourne, of course. Um, and of course, Peter Norman had that 200 meter, which stood for a long time as the record, that silver medal in Mexico, that stood as the Australian record for that particular time and distance until Gaut himself overtook that time at the back end of last year. So, yeah, from athletics point of view, particularly recently, we haven't had a lot in that sort of short 100, 200. There's a few, in some of the field events. We know Starks Brothers been the one of the main attractions there when it comes to the Australian athletics team. Um, but other than probably maybe Sally Pearson, there hasn't been really anyone in recent memory in the specific 100, 200. We had Rowan Browning as a big standout at Tokyo, but he never felt like he would be much of a medal chance. Here we've got something a little bit different coming forward with Gout, and it's going to be, as you said, the next three, maybe four. Of course, it's hard to sort of see how these things go, and of course, injury can crush dreams at any time in any sport. We know that, but it is very exciting to see what the future might look like in just a few short years. We might have someone right in the thick of things in LA, and of course, Brisbane is just going to be absolutely massive. But that may not even be the pick of his powers in terms of what he's able to do.
And it's simply amazing. Now we will move right along with
Yeah.
ICC Champions Trophy, and we've discussed this
We can
quite a
just
bit.
briefly recap. Briefly
Um,
recap.
India,
India won the title. Not
India win. Well
surprising.
done. Like
Yeah. To be
I'm,
honest, they were probably the best team in it, but
yeah,
they'll always be that
I'm
little
not
over if they never
discrediting
went.
them as a team. I just think I've expressed my views that it should be
Yeah.
in one place. Political views aside, if you don't agree with political stances, or if you're obviously India Pakistan have that relationship, that okay, just don't participate. Um, However, Sheffield Shield, Constas made a 50, and Adelaide
Yeah,
Oval
Constance
not
made a
able to
50.
host the final. I think that's the biggest story out of this. What?
The biggest story. So the constant one, the Sam Constance making a 50 was from a couple of weeks ago. He's been a bit all over the place in the Sheffield Shield, but just making a few decent scores will definitely lock him in for that World Test Championship final in a few months. But the big story is, of course, the fact that despite Peter Malauskis hoping otherwise, and we did mention that in Footy Chat, that the drop in pitch plans weren't really going to happen. So the AFL has effectively said to Cricket Australia, no, you can't have the Sheffield Shield final at the Adelaide Oval. Everyone was slightly disappointed at that, and now. I remember what the ground it's going to be because it's not really a venue I've heard of. It's a small oval somewhere in Adelaide. I cannot remember it, and I'm hoping here it is. The Karen Rolton Oval. March 26th. That is where we're going to see the final of the Sheffield Shield play. South Australia take on Queensland for the first class title, the last of the 31 matches of the Sheffield Shield season. Queensland finishing second, narrowly ahead of Victoria, who won by 34 runs, but that wasn't quite enough to get the job done and get them into the finals. So South Australia and Queensland, it will be at that obscure oval somewhere in Adelaide as opposed to the more level.
Karen Rolton Oval on March 26th will be first day of play. However, there has been reports today about Usman Khawaja and a bit not too happy with the Queensland Cricket Board or whatever, Queensland Cricket. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. However, we will review the Sheffield Shield final once it's been played next week.
I will say, I'm hoping hopefully I'm not disclosing anything I shouldn't be doing. I'm writing at the moment for the Australian Cricket Society, and we do have plans for writing on both the Sheffield Shield final and a little bit of history on the Sheffield Shield as part of my journalism scholarship and writing for that particular website. So there will be Sheffield Shield content from me in the coming weeks.
And if you haven't already checked out Lorenzo's work for the Australian Cricket Society, I implore you to do so. It's an amazing opportunity for this young lad, and I mean, he gets the mentorship of me, but I think this is a lot bigger. I don't know if he'll say that to my face, but it is a great opportunity for him, and I think he deserves all the support and all the accolades that come with it. So congratulations as we move on to the next sport, which is Australia.
Oh,
England.
I forgot to mention this. Yes,
the day-night test, first time ever, the men's day-night test. Because the women's got there first. And I've also got a little interesting fact about women's cricket I will bring up. But first, it's the... What is it? It's
150th anniversary.
Anniversary. I knew it was something to do with Australia-England centenary, but it's not the centenary because that was in 1977. 2027. This will be played around this time, which is interesting. You mentioned it in Footy Chat. He gave us the history lesson of the football and cricket overlap. Well, this is going to be interesting. However, I'm excited for it. Day-night test at the G. Love it.
Yes, I am happy that they're doing it. It will feel a little bit weird that we're celebrating the history of cricket by doing something very recent and very unlike what they would have done in 1877. But I enjoyed the women's test match. The MCG looks good under floodlights for any sport, whether it's obviously Australian football is very common. We've seen soccer played there under the lights, and of course cricket. I think day-night test cricket is an underutilized thing. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that after the Adelaide test that I'd like to see a few more of the other nations, particularly South Africa, New Zealand, and the West Indies in particular. I thought might have been nations where where day-night test cricket could be a bit more of a regular thing on their calendars. I think it should get a good crowd, a different atmosphere. If it would feel unlikely that ever Boxing Day moves away from anything but a red ball, but this will be a good opportunity just to see something that is probably we're worthy of seeing at this point. Australia, England,
we need it.
Day-night test, MCG, men's test. It should be a good occasion.
It definitely should. Now, I also came across a bit of trivia talking about the women's day-night test, but a little bit of cricket trivia for you. That a woman was the first person to bowl overarm.
Oh, that's interesting.
So Christine, and this was thank you, Elisa Healy. I watched the video and I'm like, oh, I've got to just hit Lorenzo with this fact here. So Elisa Healy was talking about this, and Christina Wills, so she's been attributed with the founder of the round arm bowling because of it would be to do with the skirt. So it was just interesting to see that she developed the overarm bowling style because of the underarm would catch the skirt. But a little bit of cricket trivia, cricket knowledge just being distributed why not? It
Why not?
is educational. Aussies around the ground. We've got to be without Boxy because we're not going to be talking for an hour. We've got to at
No, we
least
won't.
get some bits of information out there. So there is that. But talking about Melbourne, talking about sporting events, international sporting events,
Oh, yeah.
something that happened over the weekend, the Grand Prix. Now, I don't know about you, but I was glued. I was
Oh, yeah,
absolutely
yeah, yeah.
glued to the going on at Albert Park. Um, it wasn't to be
It
for
was.
Oscar Piastri. He did well.
It wasn't.
And the other Australian crashed out
Jack Dillon
relatively early.
crashed out in the first. Yeah, first lap effectively. There was Hajar spun on the say on the formation lap, so there was about a 15
Oh, and you're
20
just breaking up here, so I
minute lap
will
to get
get you to
underway.
repeat yourself.
And then we got about.
So just repeat yourself. You just were
Yeah,
breaking up there.
I'll start that again. Yeah, so Jack Doohan crashing out early. Who was it? It was Hadjar who's spun on the formation lap. That put a 15 to 20 minute delay on when the race was supposed to get underway. Then it got underway, and then we raced for about one sector, and then Jack Doohan was in the wall, so the safety car had to come out again.
It was very much
It
a
was it was
safety car
it was very
laden
ordinary.
race, especially when the wet
I
weather.
I never realized this, and I do try and watch a little bit of Formula One. And I'm going to watch much more of it this year, given the dynamics between we've had lots of different guys changing over. So Hamilton at Ferrari, the McLarens look like they will be the fastest car. Max Verstappen won't have as easy as it has been for him in previous seasons. You feel like for a lot of the season it will be like it was for much of this race. We'll have the two McLarens either side of Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Um, yeah, so I'm going to watch a bit more of it, but I never realised that Formula One teams, their way of communicating how heavy the rain's going to be is they have a system. They have so Class One rain is just sort of light drizzle, and then it goes to Class Two, Three, Four, and Five. And if you get into Class Five, that's what we're calling the race off here.
Oh
We
yeah.
can't race; it's too dangerous. So. And class three is even pretty substantial.
Well, there was
So
class
there was a lot of
three
that. There was
later on in the
we're
race,
expecting
so
5 minutes. Yeah, and
I
Charles
just
was like, yeah, he
I
was like
found
at
it
one
very
point.
interesting
Oh,
hearing the
class three.
radio,
Like,
watching
ooh.
the broadcast, hearing it. It's like, oh, it's going to be class two, it's going to be class three coming up, and you could hear them going, "Oh, that's not good," or yeah, it was
Yeah, is the strategy or as it always is around wet weather and Formula One when they are behind the safety car in wet weather, it's always a brilliant watch. And the Ferraris looked like for half a second they had nailed the strategy perfectly when that was it. I think it was the last safety car or second last safety car came out, and the Ferraris were in front, but they needed to come in and pit. And that stifled them, so they finished right down the bottom there. Um, Piastri, he deserved a podium, but he made one error, and it wasn't helped when Lando Norris also went off in front of him. He did very well, though, to be fair, to get back onto the track, because when he spun off there at the second to last corner, I thought he was out of the race, and so did the people running the on-screen graphic, because they had him listed as out for about 20 seconds, but he was able to reverse back onto the racetrack. He lost a lot of time. He did manage way up to ninth. Bodie, who was at that particular race, said that right in front of him, Oscar Piastri pulled off a very good overtake that we didn't see on the TV broadcast right at the end of that race to get himself an extra point. So he probably deserved 18 or 15, to be honest. But Lando Norris was the leader for most of the race and was surprisingly for him, got away from pole all right. Still led, as I said, it was Norris, Verstappen, Piastri in that top three for much of that race, and was probably the deserving way it should have finished. In the end, Russell ends up making his way onto the podium for Mercedes. It was a very interesting race because I'm looking at these standings, going, how is this car this close to being there? Like, how are the Mercs this high up? How the Ferraris found themselves here? How is this car somehow this close to the points, even though they've been running at the bottom all day? It was just because there was there was six, I think, in the end, DNF. So drivers found themselves a bit closer to the points than they otherwise would have thought and were for a long time. So Lando wins from pole. Paul Roscoe, he just made one error, and that was more than enough by how big it was to just see him fall off into the grass there at turn 13. That being said, though, he was able to get himself back into the points, and they could be very handy points for McLaren in the Constructors' Championship later in the season. It would have been a good race to start the season. If you're up in Europe and you have to get up at 5 a.m., I don't think it was the worst race in the world. But we produced a few more bangers recently. Albert Park for quite a number of years was just a sort of boring, dull
Oh,
race for many years. But with changes to the layout, with some of the weather havoc, to be fair, we've had much better races at Albert Park in the last few years, compared to something like 8 years ago, where we just had a lot of um, Vettel and Valtteri Bottas just riding off into the sunset, never to be caught again.
well, I've just been quietly setting something up because I actually saw an amazing graphic by Motorsport by Apex on Instagram. I thought this is too good not to share because of my favorite stat about the Grand Prix is that it is a street circuit. You can drive on it, but part of the section is actually a car park. So
Yes,
this, I don't know if you've seen this, but this right here
probably not.
can show you what it actually looks like majority of the year. Like
Yeah,
Lakeside Oval car park, and then it gets transformed into an F1 track. You can park on an F1 track. How amazing is that? I love the transformation. They get the stands in. It is one of those things where you don't actually think about when you see it on TV that, as I said, like one of the turns
yeah,
is literally turn 4 is literally a car park. You got Lakeside Drive, that scenery there, and then it becomes a stand. You got the main straight there. You can park outside. Once again, you can park on the main straight. On
yes,
turn 2 and 3, it's just it's one of those things. It's just mind-boggling to think about. And then there you go. Turn 2 is just all this gets made and then dismantled, and it happens year after year. And
yeah.
other states try and
And,
steal it
and
from us, but they're not gonna. They're not gonna.
no, it's become one of the big Melbourne events. I did read somewhere at least a headline and didn't sort of dig too deep on it about the potential that we could see testing brought to Melbourne. That would be quite the weird thing because now they'd have to shut that place down for an extra couple of weeks beforehand, for the week long F1 testing before the following week you actually have the proper Grand Prix. And there is that would be interesting. Would people be able to, like I said, public streets, so would people just sort of be able to take their dog on a walk and come up to the fence a little bit around the lake, as the Formula One cars go by? It wouldn't be the worst testing venue in the world. I'm not sure how realistic that is going forward.
But
Bahrain's the new place where they test, and that's been there for a few years now,
now,
ever since they moved away from Barcelona.
Boxy has driven it, and he always gets annoyed because the speed limit when it's not an F1 track is about 40 kilometers an hour. And I think that's because everybody just feels like, oh, I'm racing on an F1 track. They want to, they
I
just
have
want
to
to
go
floor
up
it.
as fast as I
They
can.
want to floor it. But yeah, so he gets the thrills of getting to drive the same area as his hero, the non-Australian Verstappen,
It always
but
gets brought up
he's Australian in his
rounds.
heart, so
Yeah.
there's that. But there's the
Mind you,
F1
he was in Ferrari gear. All
season
the stuff he sent
continues.
on Instagram and WhatsApp, he was in Ferrari gear this weekend.
Lando Norris took
And
the
he was at
win, and there was a lot of orange, the orange tsunami in Melbourne, as I mentioned in footy
yes,
chat. There was
yes.
a lot of orange.
TWS winning at the G and McLaren winning at Albert Park. So it was a big day for Orange in Melbourne sport.
And talking about Melbourne sport, Melbourne United are playing in the NBL finals. They defeat Illawarra defeated my Southeast Melbourne, and Melbourne United defeated Perth to progress to the final. And tonight, Melbourne United lost 71-80, which I think it brings it down to a.
Okay.
I'm just getting
Illawarra, I
a
believe.
confirmation here. That was
We're
game
just
4.
following
So
the end of
Melbourne
that game.
United. It will go to a game 5. Melbourne
Yep.
United won the first one 88-96. Illawarra won the second 102 to 100. Melbourne United won the third 83 to 77, and Illawarra won tonight 80 to 71, bringing on a game 5, the fifth and deciding game. Oof. I'm
Yeah.
I've got to
Well,
go for Illawarra. Sorry Boxy, sorry Padge, sorry Dav, sorry Simone,
like
and
you said,
anybody else.
every game in this series has been won by the away team. So
So
theoretically, Melbourne United have the advantage.
I've got to go for Illawarra. They do deserve it. However, in other basketball news, we have the Pelicans to come and play in
Yeah, I saw
Melbourne.
this last week. Yeah, like I said last week, a lot of last week stuff in here, and Melbourne is just a hotbed for all these American sports coming in. We had the NHL in not too long ago, or on Labour Arena. We've got an NFL, a couple of we have an NFL in a couple of years coming here, and now the um, New Orleans Pelicans will be coming here. I don't think it's for. I'm pretty sure, is it just preseason? I'm not sure. I
It
don't
is
really
the
follow.
preseason,
Not
yes.
far
It's
from
the
a few
5th
more
of.
titles still
I'm pretty sure
preseason.
they'll be playing Melbourne United and Southeast Melbourne Phoenix in a game.
There you
So
go.
one game each, third to the 5th. But that
We're,
is
we're
big.
clearly a
But
hotbed for getting. We're clearly a hotbed for getting many of these different sporting organisations, particularly in the states, coming along and into the country.
it is exciting to see the Americanization of the Australian thing. I'm just waiting for baseball to come back. Come back to the
Oh
G.
yes,
Come on, do it. They were last.
Gee,
It was Arizona versus my Dodgers actually at the SCG. I did not attend. I was very close to going, but I just I'd love to see the MLB back in Melbourne, back in Australia and in Melbourne. I don't know if it has been in Melbourne before, but baseball at the G would be amazing, and yeah, but something else that would be amazing and horse racing. Talk us through what's been going on in the past few weeks.
yes, but there's been a little, a few different things, and to be honest, it's been hard to track and keep on all of it. But so the couple things I wanted to point out, Tom Kitten getting the better of Mr. Brightside in the All Star Mile a couple of weeks ago at Flemington. It's probably a race that might be better suited to be running in the spring, I reckon. It hasn't really gone to the same heights as the Everest did. Has in Sydney, that it was sort of trying to sort of replicate a little bit. But I thought Tompkin was very unlucky when he lost to Mr. Brightside a few weeks before the All Star Mile. So it was good. I think it was a fair result to see him get up. And then last weekend over at Caulfield was only a Group 2 event, but Pride of Jenny, after we all thought Tony Otterbury had retired the great mare, brought her out of retirement. Kira Ma's done a wonderful job, as he usually does, and she won first up, so the champ is back. Australia Cup next weekend is probably... It's next weekend or the week after. Next weekend, because they're at the Valley this weekend, is probably the way to go for Pride of Jenny. Tom Kitten, the aforementioned, will be up in Sydney this weekend. It's Golden Slipper weekend, which means there's like heaps of great ones to keep an eye on. The Ramford Stakes over the 2,000 meters. Is that always 2,000? I think, was that 2,400? I feel like that's been shortened in recent years. But Via Cecina is the very short price favourite for that particular race. The Cox Plate winner with Chris Waller and James McDonald teaming up, always difficult to beat. Broadsiding is also relatively short for the Rosehill Guineas over the 2,000 metre distance. Then the George Ryder, a race Winks made her own quite a few times. Tom Kitten will not start the race favoured. It will instead be Fangirl for, again, Waller and McDonald. And then the Golden Slipper, the biggest 2-year-old race, basically almost anywhere in the world, to be honest. I'm pretty sure it's the most expensive. This one's is this a relatively open field? Yeah, $5 the field. So to be honest, I'm not massively over a number of these, apart from maybe Military Tycoon. That's a name I know, mainly because that sounds like a very Australian racehorse name. So the Golden Slipper is the iconic race, the fourth major, if you will. That is sort of the standout feature, and the Galaxy as well. So there is 5 Group 1s as they are on Golden Slipper Day. It's always a big day at Rose Hill Gardens, where this race has been held ever since it began, basically, I think in the late 50s. Private Harry is the favourite for the Galaxy, though. We run as the ninth race on a 10-race card. It's got 5 Group 1s. It's all happening up in Sydney now. This is when they really take over. The championships will be in a couple of weeks. I remember the championships last year because that marked the start of my time doing extra time, because the first thing I did for this publication team was write an article on day 1 of the championships. So we're coming up to a year on me doing this, so that's a little personal milestone, if you will. But Golden Slipper Day is big in Sydney, as it always is. We've got racing at the Valley in Melbourne, but it's a quieter weekend, even though they've got a full 11 races. Oh no, the William Reid is a relatively big race, 1,200 metres. Sprint, Jimmy Starr will start the favourite for Kieran Maher. So that's the feature race in Melbourne, 11 race card. Shows the sign of racing that they wouldn't have done that back in the 90s or 80s. They would have had 7-8 race cards. Mind you, I should have mentioned this in Aussie Round the Grounds, but I might as well do this in Footy Chat, but I'll do this in Aussie Round the Grounds. Matt Hill, he can just call whatever, and
he's amazing.
He was between the races in Melbourne on Saturday, and then going over to call the football at Marvel Stadium between the Dogs and the Roos. He was calling Friday night, Saturdays, Sundays. He's got plenty on his plate, but he seems to do very well at not only organising his schedule, but also being able to do a really good job at everything he calls at. So no doubt he'll be at the Valley for William Reid Stakes Day. So that's the feature race in Melbourne, but most of the focus is on the 5 Group 1. So full 6 Group 1s in Melbourne in Australia this week. 1 in Melbourne, but a full 5 in Sydney, where the Golden Slipper is the feature race. And quite a number of the big names with the likes of Via Sistina, likes of Broadsiding, Fangirl. Regular names in Australian racing have been for a little while now. Will be up in Sydney for Rose Hill's really feature day. They've got the Golden Eagle as well in the spring, but this has always been their feature day in the autumn. And like I said, Radwick will host the championships in a couple of weeks.
And that is all we have time for this week in Aussies Around the Ground. Thank you so much, Lorenzo, for joining me online. We've had a few technical issues. We've had a few hiccups, but hopefully we'll be back in the studio next week. If you excuse the camera angles and all the glitches that had occurred in this episode, we'll see you next week.